Located on 225 acres in Garden City, Long Island, Nassau Community College, a member of the State University of New York system, has close to 20,000 students attend the school each year. The college mascot is Leo the Lion, and these are his stories of the school's absolute best and brightest who have graduated over the past 50-plus years. So let's catch up together as the Alumni Association of Nassau Community College proudly presents Lion Tales on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC.
Welcome to Lion Tales. My name is Dr. Lynnda Nadien, and I am a director on the board of the Alumni Association at Nassau Community College and a proud graduate. I am here to celebrate the successes of our alum, and together we will share stories that will uplift, inspire, and often amuse you. Each week, I will introduce you to the alumni of Nassau Community College interested in sharing their stories and experiences while attending the college and the secrets to their success. Look for many new and exciting events on the Alumni Association social media pages and share any exciting news with us on Facebook, Instagram, or on our webpage at ncc.edu/alumni. Or find me on X at Dr. Lynnda Nadien. The lion is the mascot for Nassau Community College. The lion is associated with power, intention, physical strength, and grace. Our alum possess these same characteristics and symbolize royalty and strength. Lions are a symbol of royalty, and all of our alum contribute to the beauty of our college society. Together, we are Lion Tales. Today, I would like to welcome to Lion Tales Jerome Paduano, class of 1993. Jerry spent 2 years at Nassau Community College and then attended Kree Institute of Electrolysis, Grumman Data Systems, completing Nassau Community College in 1993 and then attending Stony Brook. He is a musician, a singer-songwriter, and loves anything creative. He plays music in many venues at church and has his own piano tuning and repair business, which is a one-man operation. Nassau Community College was a great choice for him and his journey. Welcome to Lion Tales, Jerome Paduano, class of 1993.
Oh, thank you very much for having me.
Thank you. So what were your intentions upon, high school graduation, and what led you to Nassau Community College?
Well, actually, it's an interesting little route that I've taken, where I probably was always going to be a doctor. That's the family was going to be a doctor, just do that. So I went away to school for a year, realizing it wasn't the right choice. It wasn't the school; it was just myself. Mm-hmm. So coming back to this presented itself as like not like, oh, I'll just go there.
Yeah.
This was like I do really want what I had heard about it. I did really want to come here.
Yes.
So there was things that you can imagine. The beginning, first impressions. You're sort of like, you're driving onto campus and you're saying, "Oh, it's open," and I still love airplanes and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. but getting around and the parking and all that led way to different experiences. Yeah. Here, and it was really kind of like a real nice reset. And looking back, it's sort of hindsight 2020. This would have been right for me.
Right from the beginning,
from the two, because I wasn't saying like, oh, I'm definitely going to do 4 years, or it's 2 years. 2 years goes by in an instant.
Yeah.
Anyway,
absolutely.
So even though there was just a little twists and turns, and the couple of teachers that I had found, especially I mentioned to you, I looked him up, Professor.
Professor Hiddleman.
Yes.
Yeah.
So okay? I got that right?
Because I also had him, and he taught the human sexuality class.
Yes. Yeah.
And he was, very well known on campus because that class was like really intense because no one had ever done and presented the curriculum and the format the way that he had.
And it's interesting. That's not how I remember, even though that was it.
Yeah.
And I remembered certain things that would say, oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
I remember when he walked us through his cancer rehab and what he had done. And he was very open with the proactive things he was doing. And his facial expressions about muscle movements and all that.
Yeah.
And I'm watching him just not perform necessarily.
Right. I remember that he was one of the first males diagnosed with a form of breast cancer.
Oh, wow.
I believe that's what it was, and so because it was so unusual at the
I
time,
had only heard one other person have that.
yeah. And so he was definitely a big influence on everyone in that class in many ways, because you were learning, but you were also given real life experience from him and what he was going through at the time. Now, you were motivated to sort of use your interest at the time. When you came here, what other classes were you taking that inspired you?
Well, I started with I started a little bit with the medical sort of classes, biology, but I took little bits here and there of what I wanted to do, because I wasn't putting anything together, still trying to figure out what was going on. And then there was the composition class. And the interesting thing about the composition class, and also, too, as a side note, the interesting thing about this whole process of being asked questions was I was able to now just, I don't want to say, I was telling my wife yesterday about what the experience was, but in a very small way, it was sort of like, I don't want to say closure, because when we have things in life that we go through, it's just like, well, and then I'm looking at it from a different perspective. So these actual questions help me.
Yeah,
I didn't even think of that.
You're reliving these things that you didn't you didn't think about.
And of course, you don't want to fill out a people like, oh, fill out a bio. What am I going to say? But it was interesting. I relived it. It was a short amount of time, but it was the composition class. And the interesting thing about the composition class, and Professor Steinman in particular, it didn't have to do with me so much, but it was that we very briefly, we had an assignment for writing, just like the first week or two, just write a story. No big parameters, no guidelines. So it must have been several days later when he said, I've gotten all your papers back, and he's holding one paper in his hand. And he says, this is now 40 years ago, but I still remember it. He said, I want to read you one paper. And he read my paper, and he said, and he read it beginning to end. And I don't know what he said, but obviously he just loved it. It wasn't so much looking back, but it was somebody didn't just grade my paper and hand it back to me.
Right.
He read it. He made a point. It was a teachable point. He didn't say everyone else did poorly. He just picked. He liked mine so much, and that struck me because I'm used to grading. Everyone's used to a grading scale unless you have a different experience.
No, absolutely. So he used it, like you're saying, as a teachable moment, and that's sort of like left an indelible print on you.
Yes, like, hey, that's interesting.
That is amazing.
Anyway, if he would have done it to someone else, I may have felt the same way, but of course it was my paper, so I felt better. Now the standing was high, and I was like.
And, it's interesting because you have this interest in the medical field at first, but music and medicine, to me, they're very similar.
Okay, yeah, sure.
And there are connections there. How do you feel about that, going from the medical into music, and how was that like part of your life, even growing up?
Well, as a spiritual person, I felt I really saw God's work in creation. And again, just not to take it too far, it's like, wow, how do you put together a beautiful symphony? Bach, he put together, and in the building blocks, and then the human body has it put together, and and the fascination has never left me about that. Even though I'm fascinated by, as I get getting older, fascinated by the things that don't work.
Gardner's theory of multiple intelligences, from Harvard, and he speaks about, he's not talking about really, IQs and classifying, but he's talking about that we possess different characteristics. So we may be very musical, we may be very sort of like medically centered, we may be more visual, we may be more auditory. So those things are so important.
I'm not familiar with that.
Yeah, that's he doesn't want anyone to use it as a way to like categorize children or stereotype them, but he speaks about the different aspects of the brain and the ability that we have, and it may be a very musical ability as opposed to writing, or it may be very musical as opposed to sort of thinking abstractly, which I always thought was very interesting.
That's fascinating.
So now when you think about music and you are a piano tuner, how did that come about?
Really, looking inside our very old piano. God bless my parents. They provided music lessons and everything, but the piano was wanting. And so I opened it up inside and saw it was, not that I fixed anything, but it's just the fascination of all the parts.
Yeah.
So I was going to medical school at the time, going to, as I say, medical school, medical mindset. And I was at Nassau Community College. At the time, I'd gone for classes. And then I decided to, at some point, call up a company. They're still in business. The gentleman, I have to go see him. This is 40 years ago. And just, I begged for a job. And again, this is, I don't want to, you got to adjust the numbers here, but still it's low. It's like $3, $4 an hour, whatever it was. But I was thrilled to just get an environment where I can learn. So he put me in a back room. We just, strip pianos or whatever I had to do, ground up in that environment, just coming from there.
That's
and
amazing.
Then moving up to, I had a write-up in, it was a Southampton East Press, or 27 East, I'm not even sure which one, where there was a Steinway rebuild that I was involved with. And it would have made the paper anyway because it was a Steinway rebuild, but I was involved in the process, and they had loved the whole thing that came out. So it was just sort of like, it just kind of did pay off in some way,
Absolutely,
to have these experiences.
You are listening to Lion Tales on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. My name is Dr. Lynnda Nadien, and our guest today is Jerry Paduano, class of 1993. So what music inspires you to write and record and even play music?
Well, a story. I love a good story. And where something's not so much repeated over and over, but you go from yesterday to today, and or hopes for tomorrow. Where you're really looking for that. We all have the people that we can think of.
Yeah. What are some of the artists that you really love and that inspired you growing up, and even moving? Now 1993.
Yeah. It was interesting because when the 80s music hit.
Yeah.
I kind of changed it because all the sounds, there was a lot of sound texture came in. And I really took to that, and I'm still interested in that. But you talk about the Beatles, the Harry Chapins, the songwriters, that really had that storytelling leading into this 80s pop phenomenon that had come out, and even into the grunge, which a good grunge song. Give me a good heartfelt grunge song.
If you think about, Nirvana's first album,
right.
And even though that's moving like more toward the 90s, so you're getting closer to being at Nassau Community College. But looking back, just listening to, like, let's say Bob Dylan, who just really is. He'll be playing at Jones Beach, and there's a little with Willie Nelson. There's going to be, he doesn't want to perform all the old songs, but every time you go, it's sort of like an artistic expression because he does kind of whatever he wants.
He'll be on the piano.
He was on the piano, which I thought was so interesting.
And you can't record him either. You can't video record him. They'll have somebody tap your shoulder.
And they said when he got up from the piano, he would walk over to the other side of the stage, but they kept the lights dim so he could get across, which I thought was so funny too. But I guess he's set in his ways. So right now, again, going back to this, the correlation between, music and medicine, I think is very interesting because there's sort of that like assessment and diagnosis part where I think in music it's very similar to that too, that you might be writing something and then you kind of assess the quality of it and you can improve upon it and you kind of diagnose yourself as a writer and then you can move forward and make it better. Or maybe it doesn't get that better.
Maybe that's interesting.
Yeah.
Maybe that's the first time I've ever really thought about that.
Yeah. I was thinking about this because one of a superintendent that was in Connecticut many years ago, he became like sort of a data analyst, but he was a musician first. And I always felt for me that I didn't think I would do a quantitative type of a study because I was too artistic. But then I ended up using this other part of my brain, I guess.
There you go.
And then this guy was very similar because he was, playing all the time and he wasn't thinking about statistics and numbers, but all of a sudden he was writing, doing quantitative studies. So there's something in our brain that kind of allows us to,
you know more about this, I'm sure. The idea that I tell people, if you're going to do one creative thing, do something opposite, completely opposite, because your brain likes the relaxation. I don't even know what I could have made that
it
up.
could be that.
Or I heard it.
Yeah, it could be that. It's so, it's interesting, even with, little kids, like do you teach piano at all?
I used to teach until this consumed you can't repair at a lesson.
Yes, that's true.
You can't repair, and it's not.
You can't repair.
It's prideful to think that way.
Because usually, I guess maybe the best age to start learning piano is maybe about 6-ish, when they can kind of sit for a little while, and not to make it too long. A lot of times the lesson is an hour and a half, but it's just way too long for a little kid to sit there. But looking at the parts of the piano and as a tuner going in, how did you become expert at that?
It's when I went to a dumpster in Farmingdale with a truck, and I loaded up pianos that they were going to throw away, put them in the truck, driving home was like literally three blocks from the house, and then getting them out and then opening them up and really looking at them. That was really the thing that really did it. Yeah. Because I had the book knowledge,
right,
and I had a mentor, and the internet was exploding at that time. They had groups, so that's what really did it. Just looking at the nuts and bolts of it.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
And I got in the truck too, and it was manual. So the guy says, "You know how to drive an automatic?"
Yeah.
And I went, "It got manual." I said, "Yeah."
Yeah.
So I kept it in first all the way home. But still, the idea is that just get up and get it and do it.
Yeah. And interestingly enough, your interests here at Nassau Community College were English and medicine.
Still.
And so that, again, sort of shows your interest level and the way that your brain was working because you were taking these courses. And like you said, during the English class, the professor pointed out that you did this expert type of a paper, and he wanted to share it with the class. Now, in terms of medicine, what classes did you take? You said bio?
Well, it was all the regular. When I was
all
in
the
Florida,
liberal arts.
I did a year in Florida. We did a whole bunch of classes.
Yeah.
Where you would on the path to. My brother is a pediatrician in Florida.
Oh, okay.
And I know you're asking about me, but I got to say this. He went to Italy and learned, and we still talk today a little about some stuff and
wow, yeah,
about my health. Thank God I'm in good health, but certain the way the body works and
absolutely
and all that kind of stuff.
And now there's so much research on the body and the brain and the way that we're thinking and positive thinking, and even doctors now are trained where the bedside manner is critical. Even if you're a great surgeon, they still want you to come out and be, how do you engage with the patients that you have?
Absolutely. A large percentage of people in the hospitals are stress related.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the gut microbiome it creates so many chemicals in our body that it's amazing.
When they say that laughter is the best medicine, it's really probably true because sometimes you'll hear yourself laughing and then you're like you can't believe that you're feeling like a happy feeling because a lot of times we get too caught up in thinking negative thoughts.
You're right. You're absolutely right.
So now talk about your sort of life as a working musician. Okay,
so to be clear, I've made, as a professional musician, I've made about 800, carry the one. 800 and some odd dollars in my life. Because I go out and play what I want, when I want, with who I want, and it's all my own music. So it's sort of like, who wants to hear that? My wife, my mother, not even myself sometimes.
Yeah. And so what type of songs
I don't want to be silly with it, but it's just sort of like when you write your own music
absolutely.
And you put it out there, you're doing it I've got to be happy with what I'm doing.
Right.
Even if it's at church, I've got to be even though there's certain parameters that I have to follow there, which I'm happy to do. It could be any different genre. I do several genres of music.
Yes.
And I actually force myself to sing because my singing voice is not my primary. The playing is the primary. But I love the creative process of And it always changes the creative process.
Yeah. Now, were you writing songs even while you were on campus here? Like, was it considered your hobby? Or
had to have been in the band in the 80s, definitely in the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
We played in the city.
Yeah.
From time to time. Nothing really too much out here.
Do you remember I remember when I was here, the Ramones played on campus,
gosh.
like right in the middle of everything. And I think, I'm pretty sure Joan Jett and the Blackhearts too. At some point. And I remember they had like a little poster for the show, and it was kind of a big thing that they were coming to play.
That's fantastic. Ramones, wow.
And because the Ramones were kind of old school, and then Joan Jett was 85, 86, 87. Those were the years where that was the height of her
groundbreaking.
career.
I remember playing at CBGB's in the city too. And I was a little let down when I found out that we're all not related.
Yeah.
The Ramones. I just adopted the lesson.
I know.
It's like, what is this all?
My son was just telling me this. I'm like, why are you ruining my life? You want to pretend like the Partridge Family is real. Just let me believe that they're real. I know that they're not, but just let me believe it for 5 seconds. You are listening to Lion Tales on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. My name is Dr. Lynnda Nadien. Our guest today is Jerry Paduano, class of 1993. So, what are some of your goals now for your business?
I'm actually revisiting a couple of things, and one of them is schedule. When I schedule people to provide more services for how I really feel. What I feel is best for them.
Yeah.
I felt I was a little too passive, like give the customer what they want. Well, sometimes you have to give the customer what they really need.
Yeah.
And really inform them and take the extra time to inform. Not only do a good job. I mean, it's like, I did a good job. I did this. Everybody likes me, and I have a couple of high end. I one in particular. I hear his music in here sometimes.
Yeah.
But so the point is that just to take it to that like.
Yeah.
As I'm getting older, and also I do player piano systems, which is really just basically an upgrade of the player pianos. And I was always marginalizing the player piano, but it's a very fascinating electronic type field.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I think piano tuning is it's such an art form, and I'm always very intrigued by tuners because a lot of times you may not be playing piano constantly, but you're constantly hearing. Now, do you have perfect pitch?
I do. I think that might be a little questionable as I get older. I noticed that I've been going for the note a few times and going, okay. But in a general sense, if if somebody played something, I can tell a few notes. There's phenoms on that have taken it to a huge level. But to answer your question,
yeah, because I've learned a lot about it because I also have it.
Oh, okay.
And my husband does, and my son.
Okay.
And so between the three of us,
oh boy,
they can tell you like the exact note. I can kind of equate it to something else.
Okay.
And know.
Well, that's all you.
They say it's an inner ear abnormality.
Oh wow,
which is really interesting.
It fits with my personality. Perfect.
Yeah, it's really amazing.
So glad I came here today.
You see, we keep connecting the medical with the musicianship, and I think that could be a study.
No, that's
that absolutely
give me
could.
something to think about.
So now we're thinking about this, and here you are, 30 years later. Mm-hmm. And what advice would you give to your younger self coming onto this campus?
Seek out the older people in your life.
Mm-hmm.
Don't marginalize them, because there's too much of that going on.
Yeah.
And again, we're coming to classes. Teachers are older than you are, for the most part. When you hear something that someone has to say, sometimes you suspend a little bit of judgment. This may be going a little too far than what you're thinking, but suspend a little judgment. Try to find out maybe what they're trying to impart. Then you put it to your own filter of, it just doesn't work for me, rather than it just doesn't work for me.
Right.
And you start with that kind of a thing.
Yeah.
And it sounds like a plug, but I really want to say that Nassau was one of those places where if I wasn't so much into the college life when I had gone down to Florida, it was about I didn't even join the fraternity, but there was about all those other college things. And I just wanted to get my information.
Right.
And I wanted to use it, and I wanted to, and that's what I got here. There's more here, but that fit my bill.
Yeah.
That was good for me. And not that it was a solitude. There's people that you can meet other people.
Right. Yeah. And, I think that so many of the alum that are coming back are speaking about a feeling that they had being here, that they felt that there was a sense of belonging.
Yes.
They felt that they weren't going to be judged based on, their ability.
Absolutely.
And
that's interesting. I never thought about that, but that's, now that you're saying that.
And having, talked to so many alum, I think that that's such a special thing, because I don't know if you could say that about every place. It would be interesting if you could say, I went to St. John's and I felt that way, but they didn't.
Okay.
Nassau has that very special quality.
Yeah.
What advice would you then give to these incoming freshmen who may not be 17 or 18? Some of them come in and they might be 25. They're returning. They're 35. They're 40. They're coming in and, getting ready to come to a community college for the first time, which, they have that little bit of a stigma because, you're only going to the 2 year, you're not going away. And what do you think about that?
2 years can become 2 years somewhere else, because I hear it's for me, because I went to Stony Brook afterwards, it was sort of, just easing. So I don't look at it in as much as 2 years. I look at it, the 4 years went by. So I know it's an interesting question. I don't know what I would say is, this could be one of those trust your gut when you get here kind of a places. You're seeing
true.
it. There's nothing lurking around the corner. Like it'll play out probably as you see it.
Right.
It's open. It's very accessible. I probably have a better answer on my way home.
Right, yeah. But you were happy when you were here, correct?
Oh, yes, definitely.
Yeah,
definitely.
and that semblance of happy is a great thing.
Oh, absolutely.
I would like to thank our guest, Jerry Paduano, class of 1993. How can our listeners contact you?
Oh, contact me. Wow, that's great. It's, for piano tuning, it would be Gennaro, Gennaro Piano Incorporated. I'm on the web. And there's also text messages, too, and let you know where I'm playing next.
Absolutely. Thank you for being here today.
Oh, please. Thank you so much, Lynnda.
Thank you. Thanks so much for being a guest today. My name is Dr. Lynnda Nadien, and I serve as a director on the board of the Nassau Community College Alumni Association, and I'm a proud alum. Lion Tales is available as a podcast on iTunes, Android Podcasts, and Spreaker. More information is online at nccradio.org. Thanks for listening to Lion Tales on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC.